Hi friends, welcome to IAS and College Connect YouTube channel. In this videos, we are going to discuss about JPQL. If you're new to this channel, please click the subscribe and bell button so that you are going to get the notifications. So here, the prerequisites for this particular topics is you should know about what is Spring Data JPA, the CRUD operations on the Spring Boot, all those things. So if you don't know about that particular topics, so please watch those videos which is there in my playlist. So let's move what is the JPQL first. JPQL is nothing but Java Persistent Query Languages. So here we are going to write the query so based upon the entities and then field name which we are having on this particular entities. So here, normally how we are going to write the query is select star from table name. Okay, so likewise we are going to be mentioned. Here, we are going to mention the table name which is there in the database. Okay, so that table name only you are going to mention it over here. But when you are going to write it for the JPQL query, so here instead of mentioning the table name here, so you are going to mention the entity name. Okay, so from the entity name, and then you're going to give the alias name for this particular entity, and then you're going to instead of star, you're going to use the alias name on here, so that this query will be going to be work as same what how you're going to return in the MySQL database. So let's see why we are using like this. So how to write the further. Okay. So as I already told that, so here we are going to mention the entities and then field name which is there in the particular entities. Okay. So here you see, I'm just going to give the some simple example. So here this query is going to be retrieve the data of employee whose salary is above 50,000. Okay, so how to write the query? Okay, so here we are going to write the JPQL query for the employee whose salary is above 50,000. Okay, so select E from employee. Okay, so employee is nothing but entity. We are going to give the alias name of E and then we are going to give the alias name on here. So here we need to check the condition, right? Okay, so the employee salary which is above 50,000. So here we are going to write the where conditions and then we are going to be mention the alias name of the particular table. So in that particular entity, in that entity, we are having the salary as a field. That is a variable name. So we are going to give it and then we are going to write the conditions. So this query is work like the same as how we are going to write select star from employee is a table name. Okay, so then it is going to be write the conditions and then salary which is going to be greater than 50,000. So this query is going to be work as same thing how we are going to write it on the database table. Okay, so let's proceed into the implementation part. Hope you understand what is JPQL query. Okay, so now you see here I just created one entity which name it as a student. Under this entity, what I did, okay, so I'm just creating the simple adding operations. Okay, so for that what I created one table, sorry, one entity which is going to be annotated with at entity annotations. I'm going to create the customized name for the particular entity which is student underscore record. Okay, so then I'm having some three field. Okay, so sorry, four field. One is ID, another one is going to be student name, another one is what, student department and student email. Okay, so to make this one is going to be a primary key and auto generated, so that I am just going to use at ID annotation and then we are going to use generated values and then type is what, identity. Okay, so then I'm just going to use annotation at column and for this particular student name. Okay, so and also for the at column and annotation for the department as well as for the email. Okay, so once we done, so what I did, I just created the empty constructor and constructor with arguments along with the getter and setter. Okay, so these are the things I written. Okay, so here in the repository, so I'm just going to create the repository for that particular student entity. So which extends JPA repository, in that I'm just going to be mention the entity name here. Okay, so here you see this class should be annotated with which annotation, at repository annotation. Okay, so at repository. Okay, done. Okay, so and So what I written on the services classes, I just written injecting the student repo. Okay, so this class is going to be annotated with at service annotation. Okay, so here I'm just going to be injecting the student repository on this particular class so that I can perform the insert operation. So here I return this method. Okay, so this method is going to be return the students class and the method name is what? Add student. Inside this, I'm just going to be pass the argument student. Okay, so here, so this method is going to be once it get inside, is going to be pass the values to this repository so that this values is going to be get inserted. So now we need to make a call to this controller so that what I did, I'm just creating the controller. This controller should be annotated with at request controller, and then we need to create an endpoint for this particular controller so that I'm just going to use a request mapping and then given the slash students. Okay, so to inject the services class into this particular controller, I'm just going to use the student services and I'm going to give the name for it. Okay, so here you see to perform the insert operation, as you know that we need to use at post mapping annotations. Okay, so that should be followed by slash add students. So when we want particular access to this particular method means, so we need to use slash students slash add students. Okay, so once we get into this method, so what we are doing, okay, so we are just passing the data, okay, through argument through which using request body annotations. Okay, so what this particular method is doing, so it's going to be called the services method. In this inside the service method, we are going to call the add student method, and then we are going to pass it. So now you see, I performed only the insert operation. Okay, so now you see, I just now I inserted one values and I tested it's whether it is working fine or not. It's working fine. Okay, so here I'm just going to, for your reference, I'm just going to give one more data. Okay, so here I'm just going to be pass make. Okay, so here name is Ashok Kumar. Okay, done. I'm just going to pass the record. Okay, so why it is not working? Okay, so I think I stopped it. Okay, so I'm just going to rerun this particular application. Okay, so here you see it's working, it's executed successfully. Yes. Now I'm going to rerun this and I'm sent the request. Now you see the data is get executed. Now, previously for retrieval operations in the repository we're having the find all method, right? Okay, so here we are not going to use the particular method. Instead of that, I'm just going to write the JPQL query. Okay, for writing this JPQL query, so we need to write inside this repo. Okay, so first we need to start from the repository and then we need to move to the services. Then we are going to write the endpoint for this particular retrieval operation. How to write that particular queries, JPQL queries. So JPQL queries is going to be annotated with at query annotation. Okay, so inside this query annotation, I'm just going to write the queries. Okay, so what are the queries? I'm just going to write means first I'm just going to retrieve the entire record. Okay, so at that at query annotation, inside this double quote, I'm just going to be mention the queries. Okay, so select. Okay, so I'm just going to use select and then from. Okay, so later I can give the alias name. Okay, so from. Okay, so here you see in the JPQL we need to mention the entity name. Okay, so what is the entity name here we are having? The entity name is what? Student. Okay, so here select from student. Okay, so yes. So yes is what? Alias name. Okay, so instead of star, I'm just going to be mention the alias name over here. So what this query is going to be, return the entire data which is present on the particular table. Okay, so but we need to make a method, right? Okay, so that we need to make an endpoint that is calling to this particular method. Okay, so for that, I'm just going to use public. Okay, so here, so the select star is going to be written the list of records, so that we are going to use the list over here. What type of data it is going to be written? It is going to be written the entity, student entity, right? Okay, so I'm just going to be include this. The return type is what? Student. And then method name, we can give any name. Get all data or get all students, we can give any name. Okay, so get all student. Okay, so students. Okay, so here you see we return this method. So when we are going to call this particular method, what this method is going to do, it is going to be execute this query. Okay, so it is going to be return entire data which is present on the student entity. Okay, now you see we are going to call this particular method in the services class. Later we are going to call this particular method on the controller. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write one separate method. Okay, so here you see, The method name is what? Public. Okay, so it is going to be written the list of students. So that here also we need to mention the list of students. Okay, so what is the method name? We can give any name. Okay, so get all records. We can give any name. Get all records. That's it. Okay, so here, so what this method is need to do? So this method need to make a call to this repository. Inside this repository, we having the get all students method. This method it need to call. Okay, so already we injecting the dependencies of this repository. That is a student repo is the repository name, right? So we already injected it. Okay, so just we are going to make a call to this. Okay, so here you see it need to return list of student. Okay, so then I'm just going to write the return. Okay, so control V student repo dot. Okay, so here you see which method we are going to return. We are going to return list of students. List of students. Okay, now it got done. Okay, so we done. Okay, so now you see we are going to create an endpoint for this in the controller and we are going to call this particular method get all records. Okay, so here is the get all record is which annotations. So we need to use for return getting all the records. We are going to use the get mapping. Okay, so inside this, I'm just going to be put get all records. Okay, so or get all. Okay, so get all method. Okay, so just I can give any name, right? Okay, so here you see I'm just going to use public. Okay, so here you see what type of data it is going to be written. The services class is going to be written the entire data. Okay, so that I'm just going to be put list. Okay, so here I'm just going to be put the entity name. Okay, so and then I can give any name. Okay, so student, get students. Okay, so I can give any name. Okay, so it is not mandatory that we need to mention this particular method name. We need to use the particular method. Okay, so here we need to import this. Okay, so here return, return. Okay, so here we need to inject the services class. Why? Because in the services class only we return the method get all, right? Okay, so I'm just going to make a call to this get all method. So I'm just going to for that, we need to make a call to the services class. Okay, so here, so that I'm just going to injecting the services class inside this, which method we are having get all. Okay, so that's it. That's it. Okay, so here we need to import this. Why it is not importing list? Okay, so I'll do one thing. I'm just going to import this, import it manually. So which is present on util package. So that java dot util. Okay, so and I'm going to put star. Oh, so I need to stop it. Okay, so I hope it will work. Yes. Okay. So now you see, I'm just going to read on this program. So now you see, when we are going to make a call to this get all, it is going to make a call to the student services method. Inside the student services method, we are having the get all method. So get all record method. It's going to be get call means so what type of operations it need to do? It is going to be called the get all students which is present on the repo. Okay. So I'm just going to make a call to this particular method get all so that it is going to be written the entire data. Okay, so here you see. So what is the endpoint? Okay, so here first we need to make a call to this controller. So already we having it. Okay, so then we need to call to this particular method get all. Okay, so here I'm just going to be use get all over here. So what type of operation? It is a get, right? Okay, so I'm just going to use get annotate get method type and I'm going to send the request now. Here you see, it is returning all the data. So hope you understand the first way of typing this query, retrieving entire records. But the next one is how to write the conditions. Okay, so here you see. So how to write the conditions. Okay, so now for that we are going to use the same way. It's a very simple. Okay, so we are going to use at query annotation. Okay, so inside this, I'm just going to be mention the var classes. Okay, select class, select query with var classes. Okay, so select. Okay, so I'm just going to pass one particular student ID. It need to return particular student's record. Okay, so here you see, I'm just going to use from, select from, and then entity name is what? Student. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this name and I'm pasting over here and then yes. Okay, so and then yes. Okay, so here I'm going to write the var classes. Okay, so var. Okay, so then we are going to get the instant of this particular table, which is yes, right? Okay, so the yes, I'm just going to put the small s on here as well as on here. Okay, so here inside this, I want to return the record based on the ID, right? Okay, so here you see what is the ID? Call a field name in this entity is ID, right? Okay, so I'm just going to mention s dot ID. Okay, so s dot ID, and then I'm just going to put the equal to symbol and then question mark one. Okay, so what is the question mark one? Okay, so that is the argument. Okay, so here you see, I'm just going to get the values through this particular method through argument, and I'm going to pass the argument to this particular conditions. Okay, so here you see I'm just going to use public. Okay, so student. Okay, so here get student by ID. We can give any name. Okay, so student ID or a student anything. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to mention student ID. Okay, so here inside this, I'm just going to be pass the values, right? Okay, so it is going to be long. Okay, so it's going to be long or integer. Sorry, integer only, right? So integer. Okay, so here I'm going to pass type is what? Integer. Okay, so here I'm just going to be get argument which is going to be student ID. Right. Okay. So now you see when we are calling this particular method, okay, so this method is now holding one values as an argument. Okay, now we need to pass the argument to this particular query. How we are going to be passed means we need to put the question mark and then that should be followed by one. So what is one means? Okay, so the argument order. Okay, so in case if you're having two arguments means you can use question mark two. Okay, so you need to make note one thing. We need to give some space after the equal to symbol. Okay, so after the equal to symbol, we need to give some space. Okay, otherwise it is going to be through an error message or else you are not going to get the record. Okay, now you see we are going to make a call to this particular method. How we are going to make a call to this particular method? Okay, so here I'm just going to write this particular method inside the services class. So what this particular method is going to return? It is going to return the one particular student's record. Okay, so here is the so student. Okay, so then get so I'm just going to get student by ID by ID. Okay, so here is it. We need to pass the values, right? Okay, so to the repository, so that here also services class only services class also need to receive the values. Okay, so that here we are going to pass an argument. Okay, so here we are going to receive an argument and return and then return. Okay, so we are going to call the repository. Inside this repository, we're having the method called get student by ID, and then we are going to pass the value. Okay, so here, so it is going to return or else null, right? Okay, so we need to pass dot or else. Okay, so it's customized, right? Okay, so that I'm just leaving it as it is. Okay, so here so we need to make a call to this particular method. Okay, so we need to make a call to this particular method, get student by ID. Okay, so here we are going to make a call to this particular method from the controller. So I'm moving to this controller. I'm going to pass at get mapping at get mapping. Okay, so inside this, I'm just going to use slash get and then by ID. Okay, so here we need to pass the values in the URL. Okay, so I'm just going to use the variable name as ID. Here we are going to get one particular record. So that I'm just going to use the student get student by ID. Okay, so we can give any name. As you already know that we need to read the values from the URL means we need to use which annotation? We need to use at path variable annotation. Okay, so here is it is integer. Okay, so then I'm just going to use ID over here. So now you see this from this controller, we need to make a call to the services. In the services, we are going to make a call to the student repo. In the student repo, when we are going to call this particular method, it is going to execute this query and it is going to give the result. Okay. So now you see we finish the service side and then we are moving to this controller. Here you see, I'm just going to use the return statement. Okay. So services class, we need to inject the particular method. So already we created the method auto add annotations. Okay, so here we are going to injecting the dependencies of the student services dot. Okay, so which method we need to call? Get student by ID. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the values ID over here. Okay, that's it. We done. Okay, now you see, I'm just going to run this code. Okay, so when you are going to get the call to this particular method, it is going to call the services. From the services, we are going to make a call to the repository. From the repository, it's going to execute this particular query. Okay, so here we are going to make a call to this particular method. Okay, so for that, we need to run this query first. Done. Okay, now you see, server is running. Okay, so I'm just going to change the endpoint, get by student, and I'm going to pass the student ID. I'm just going to retrieve the student one, whose ID is 1. Okay, so here you see, we are getting this output. Okay, so here you see, JPQL is working fine. Okay, so now that is the other way. Okay, so here, instead of passing, instead of passing, uh, question mark 1, that is the other way also. So we are going to be mention the particular field name itself. Okay, so sorry, particular variable name instead of putting question mark 1. Okay, so there is the other way also, we can mention the argument name on here. How it is possible means, so for that what we need to do, so we need to put colon and then that should be followed by variable name argument. Okay, so that it is going to be pass the values. Okay, previously we are mentioning the 1 2 3 or that is order, right? Okay, one first argument, for first argument we are going to put question mark 1, second argument we are going to put question mark 2, but here you see, we can also mention the variable name. Okay, so there is argument name. How to pass the argument means, so instead of putting question mark 1, we are going to put colon and then that should be followed by the variable name. Okay, so here you see, I'm just going to uh, stop execute and I'm going to change the instead of, okay, so let's run it. So we'll check whether it's working fine or not. Okay, so now I'm going to, instead of passing 1, I'm just going to be passing 2. Let's check whether the query is executing or not. Now you see, we got the output. Okay, so that is the other way also. Okay, so we can also use the param. Okay, so instead of putting param, okay, so what is the use of param means? Okay, so by using the param we can pass. Okay, so I'm just using without param. Okay, so it is not mandatory to use param annotations on here. Okay, so this is the other way of writing the queries. Okay, so the next one we are going to write it. So is a delete query. Okay, so delete query and then like query we are going to see. Okay, delete query is used to remove the record. Okay, so you know, right? Okay, so it's very simple. Delete query is, okay, so how to write the delete query? So we are going to put at query annotation. Okay, so here inside this we are going to write the delete query. Okay, so what is the syntax for writing the delete query? Delete from table name and then we are going to mention the column name. Okay, so here I'm going to use param annotation. Okay, so let's see how to use the param annotations on the delete. Okay, delete. Okay, so from, okay, so what's the entity name? So entity name is what? Student. Okay, so entity student. Okay, so from. Okay, so here I'm just going to use the alias name for this to entity, which is yes. Okay, so here we are going to write the condition. Okay, so what is the condition? So where, okay, so s dot id, sorry, alias name is small, right? Okay, so we need to use the same thing. Okay, so that is s dot id. Okay, so equal to, okay, so I'm just going to use the, as I already told that I'm just going to use the param annotation. Okay, so equal to, okay, so same as equal to space colon. I'm just going to mention the variable name out here. Okay, so sorry, student ID. Okay, we can give any name. Okay, student ID or student ID 1. Okay, so here I'm just going to write the method. Okay, so bubbly. Okay, so the delete operations. Okay, so delete operation is going to return nothing, right? Okay, so just I'm just going to mention void. Okay, so here I'm just going to write the method name, delete records. Okay, so delete records. Inside this, I'm just going to use the at param annotation. So param, so param. Okay, so inside this, I'm just going to be mention some name. Okay, so student one. Okay, student one. Okay, so here I'm just going to be mention name string ID. Okay, so here you see this value will be assigned to the student ID one. Okay, so that value will be assigned to this particular query. Okay, so conditions. Okay, so here you see I'm just going to make a call to this particular method. Okay, so here I'm just going to stop executing it. Same as we are going to call this method in the services. From the services, we are going to make a call to the controller. Okay, so here I'm just going to write the method. Okay, so that is public. Okay, so which is going to be return nothing. Okay, so that is method name. I can just give delete by ID. Okay, so here, so we need to pass the ID, right? Okay, so here you see we need to pass the ID. Sorry, here it is going to be not a string, it is a long, right? Okay, so long. Okay, so here I'm going to make a call to this particular method. I'm going to be pass the variable type is going to be, sorry, integer. Okay, so and then type I'm just going to be mentioning as argument name is going to be ID. Okay, from here we are going to make a call to this repo. Okay, so it's going to be it's not going to return anything. Okay, so that I'm just going to not I'm not going to use the return statement here. Student repo dot delete by ID. Okay, so here I can change the name. Okay, so that you can delete by name. Not it is a delete records, right? Okay, so what's the method name? Uh, delete records. Okay, so inside this I'm just going to pass the ID. Okay, so here why integer. Okay, so done. Okay, so now you see we are going to make a call to this particular method from the controller. Okay, so then we are going to perform the delete operation. Okay, for performing the delete operation we need to use the delete mapping. Inside this I'm just going to be call create an endpoint. Okay, delete record. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the ID. Okay, so ID and then flower bracket. Okay, so here I'm going to call the method, write the method. So public, and then it's going to return nothing, right? Okay, so why delete data? I can give any name. Okay, so delete data. Inside this, we need to read the value. Okay, so from the URL, so that I need to use a path variable. Okay, so here, so which data type it is going to be? Integer, right? Okay, so integer. Okay, so here I'm going to read use the same variable name. Okay, so in the path variable we having the ID. Okay, so I need to use the same variable name, and then inside this I'm just going to call the services class. Okay, so what is the services class injecting values? It is a student services dot. Okay, so delete by, it is not delete by ID, delete records, right? Okay, so delete records only. Okay, so delete, why it is student services delete by ID. Okay, I given delete by ID, delete by ID record. Okay, so records. I'm just going to make a call to this particular services class. Inside this, I'm just going to be pass the values ID. Now you see, we done. Okay, so now we are going to make a call to this endpoint. Before that, I'm just going to start running this program. Okay, so the coding is getting executing. Okay, so now you see the execution is done. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to first display entire record. Okay, so then I'm just going to uh, perform the delete operation. Okay, so here you see we having two records. Okay, so now I'm just going to change the endpoint. What is the endpoint? Delete records. Okay, so here you see delete records. Okay, so then I'm just going to be pass the ID. Okay, so the ID which I'm going to delete is 2. Okay, so what method here I need to change from the get to delete. I'm going to send the record. So actually why we are getting this error? So moving to this. Okay, so for example, sorry, I did a mistake. So here when we are going to perform this update and delete operations, we need to use at modify annotations. Why? Because normally at query annotations is going to be work for this retrieval operations only. Okay, so here is it. We are getting this. So normally it is going to be at query annotation is going to be work only on the retrieval operation. In case if you're going to perform other than the retrieval operation, you need to use the another annotations that is called as at modify annotation. So at modify annotations is used when you're going to perform the delete operations and then um, update operation. Okay, so sorry, I forgot to include it. Okay, so that is the reasons why we are getting this error. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make a call to this particular uh, method in the services class. In the services class, we need to use our transaction annotation. Okay, so you know this, what is the use of our transaction annotations? Okay, so here, in case if you're having 5 operations inside this particular method, means if 2 operation is getting failed, the entire transaction is rolled back. Okay, so that is the reason why we are putting the transaction annotation. It means that, so what the if case 5 operations, insert operations or delete operations is happening that inside this particular method, means all the 5 transactions need to be done successfully, then only the commit operation is going to be happen. That is the reasons why we are putting this transaction annotation. Okay, so now you see what I'm going to do. I'm just going to insert some more record. Okay, so I'm just going to insert some more record. Okay, so here in the post mapping, I'm just going to add so instead of this, I'm just going to add um, Sam. Okay, and then department is Mike, and then here also Sam. Okay, so I'm just going to send a record. Here you see the data is get inserted. Now I'm going to insert one more record, that is Ashok Kumar. Okay, so here Ashok Mike. Okay, done. Okay, so now you see I'm just going to remove the Asok records. Okay, so or else Sam record. Okay, so here you see total records we having on the database table. Okay, so we'll check how many records we are having on the database table. I'm just going to move to this JPQL database. Okay, so table, then right click, select star from table. Here you see we're having 3 records. Okay, so here I'm just going to remove the SAM. Okay, so whose ID is 3. Okay, so here I'm just going to pass delete records and then I'm just going to pass 3. Okay, so we'll check the status. Based upon the status, we are going to coming to know that data is inserted successfully. Sent. Again, we are getting this. So why? So we need to stop and save it and rerun. We are going to check the tables total records. Yes, we are having. Okay, so now you see I'm just going to stop save it and then rerun it once again. Yes, you see the status is going to be changed to 200. Okay, so now I'm going to check the total records is we are having is 2 records. The data is get deleted. Okay, so and also we are going to check it on the endpoint side also. Here you see 1 and 4 is only there. Okay, so here also we are having 1 and 4. So this is all about JPQL queries. Okay, so here okay, so we saw about retrieval operations and then delete operations. Okay, so in case if you want to write a conditions means you can also put where and likewise we can write any set of you can write any conditions. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please share this video with your friends and please don't forget to click the subscribe and bell button. Your comments are always welcome. Thank you.